Our students are the future. How we advance innovation and impact and approach equity in their classrooms will determine how we thrive as a world community. The status quo just won't cut it. That's why we're here to break the grade. Hello, breakers and difference makers. I'm Josh Chernikoff, host of How I Broke That. I'm a two-time entrepreneur in the education space, and I've successfully exited both of those companies. I've experienced my fair share of breaks in my life, and I'm here to bring my signature approach to my new show, Breaking the Grade. I'm embarking on this special journey alongside my good friend and mentor, John Gamba, Director of Innovative Programs and Entrepreneur in Residence at Penn GSE. In our podcast, you'll hear from emerging business owners in the education space who are working to transform education as we know it. Tune in as we hear about industry trends, unique principles and practices, and the attempts that have and haven't worked for our grade-breaking guests. So fellow entrepreneurs and educators, what do you think? Are you ready to take a hammer to the education space and break the grade? Hello, educators, and welcome to Breaking the Grade, the first time we're bringing our show to the world. Our show will be all about improving the field of education through innovative ideas, products, and platforms. We'll interview top thought leaders in the education space to support and inspire you as you aim to make an impact of your own. Today, we'll hear from one of our own, my friend, my mentor, my co-host, John Gamba, a serial education entrepreneur who built and sold the first school-to-home communication system to Blackboard, helps run a family foundation aimed at closing the achievement gap, and serves as entrepreneur in residence at Penn's Graduate School of Education. How has John disrupted the education space for the better in the past? How does he plan to keep making a difference in the future? What companies does he see doing the same today? We'll ask these questions and more, as well as hear concrete advice to go out and break the grade ourselves. So sit back and relax, but don't forget to take notes. You're going to want to keep this content close by when you set off on a grade-breaking entrepreneurial journey of your own. John Gamba, welcome in.
Great to be here, Josh. It's great to be on the podcast.
Yeah, well, this is our show, Breaking the Grade. It's something that you and I talked about. It probably wasn't a year ago, but many months ago. And I'm glad that we finally got to this place.
I love this. You know, you and I look at a lot of companies, we look at a lot of ventures, and we're always thinking about, what are the things that are out there that are breaking the grade? So here we are.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. Before we go into the companies that are breaking the grade, let's talk about you. We got to give some credibility. I've done a few things in this space, but nothing like you have. So talk about how you have broken the grade. You've disrupted the industry, all the while remaining a friend and a mentor to countless people.
Come on, man. I hate talking about myself. So
Please.
I'll just go fast.
Please.
So I'm here now at the Penn's Graduate School of Education. I actually graduated from Penn in the early 90s. I always had K-12 education in my genes. My father was a school board chairperson. My mom was a university professor. My sister was a Montessori teacher. So we always had this thought that we wanted to do good and do well in education. That brought me in 1999 to starting my own ed tech venture incubator, Incubate, in Los Angeles, California. And then, founded, oversaw a few ed tech ventures, one being PACE, which you named the Partnership for Academic and Community Excellence, which was the first and only school-to-home communications network that allowed principals and administrators to record personalized voice messages and send them out to parents at a moment's notice. Lots of lessons learned, humbling experience. Eventually, we were able to sell the company to Blackboard, had a great exit. And then with my family, we started the Gamba Family Foundation, focusing on how to close the achievement gap for inner city schools. So it's been an incredible journey. Lots of lessons learned. Seen a lot of companies, and just really excited to share this entrepreneurial journey with you and with others who come along on this journey.
Tell us where you're sitting today, right now.
Yeah, so I'm on campus at the University of Pennsylvania, 34th and Market Street in our Catalyst at Penn GSE Innovation Center. Catalyst at Penn GSE has a mission to advance innovation in worldwide education, and we do that through a continuum of programming, including meetups and boot camps, and our signature program, the Milken Penn GSE Business Plan Competition, which is now in its 13th year. Last 13 years, we've supported 1,500 ed tech companies. We've given away over $1.5 million. And those companies have gone on to raise over $150 million in venture capital. So we love what we do here. We love supporting education, entrepreneurship, and innovations in worldwide education. And, we do it every day, and we're excited to do it.
Yeah, and I think that we're going to have an opportunity to talk to entrepreneurs in different places, and hopefully, lots of them, will have been touched at one point or another by Penn, because it's obviously a great program. But for now, let's probably turn a spotlight on some of those companies. You and I have some mutual friends. Of course, one of them, Possible.me. I told them about the show. They were super excited. So just, can you rattle off some of the companies you've had your eye on that are currently breaking the grade?
Yeah, there's a lot. You mentioned one. Possible.me is a great company that's working on, having a college advisor in your pocket to help students develop their competencies for college and career readiness. But it really runs the gamut. We're looking at a lot of STEAM companies, math, English language arts, ventures that support students with disabilities who are on the spectrum, a lot of community engagement platforms. We know that a more engaged parent is a higher achieving student. So companies like Gabon out of Providence, Rhode Island, is another company that comes to mind. Prisms of Reality, using immersive environments to develop competencies in math and specifically algebra. A great founder out of MIT named Anurupa Ganguly, who's doing some amazing things in the world of competency-based math. These come to us through our programming, whether it's our competition or my entrepreneur in residence hours, where I provide a lot of mentorship and advice on how to develop a business plan, a dynamic business plan, how to raise capital, and how to develop a venture through an evidence-based lens that leads to great outcomes so that the company can sustain itself and ultimately scale to success.
Is there one thread that's running through all of the companies that you mentioned that will make them successful, or is that TBD?
I think I wouldn't say a thread. I'd say threads. There's a couple of things that I believe really distinguish an ed tech venture, and the research shows this. The great Caitlin Donnelly, who's a venture capitalist in this space, Avalanche Ventures, co-wrote an article called "Alive in the Swamp," and she looked at over 1,000 ed tech ventures and noticed that most of them failed for one reason or another, but some distinguished themselves and have gone on to do great things in the ed tech space. And there were three threads, or what I consider recipes for success, for those companies that are doing advanced things in the ed tech space. One was the engaging nature of the product or service. We see students out there, they need a Fortnite or a Minecraft-like experience. So the products that are super engaging, I would say, would be one thread. The second is the pedagogical alignment of that product or service to what needs to happen to deliver a learning outcome in today's 21st century classrooms. So are these products and services developing creative problem-solving skills? Are they developing critical thinking skills? Are students able to solve problems on a team or in a group? These are all skills that are needed to survive, in the 21st century in college and career. Finally, we like to say, is it easy to implement? Is the adoption of the product or service easy to be done in today's time-starved typical school environment or school district? Those that have done that, super engaging, pedagogically aligned, easy to adopt and implement, have tended to do well. The Nuzellas, the Poptropicas, the Dreamboxes, the Illustrative Maths. We do a lot of benchmarking of these products and services, and they tend to have done extremely well out there.
So you get to interact with these companies. That's fascinating. What's your what's the end game for you for Penn GSE by working with these companies?
I'd say to leverage and respond to a lot of the mistakes that I made and help them not make them. For example, we talk a lot about evidence basis and being a research-based product. Selling into schools, whether it's K-12 or higher ed, the purchasing decisions are being made by people who want to know that there's evidence of effectiveness of that product or service. So we really work with our entrepreneurs and our ventures through a lens of research to practice. And what that means is their product or service rooted in research? And what is that research that's driving their theory of action or their theory of change? But also, what is the evaluative model that's in place to be able to track outcomes so that the product or service can be delivered and accessed by students, but then adapted and evolved based on how students interact and based on the outcomes that are being delivered. It's the ventures that are going out there and really co-creating or co-constructing products and services, responding to the research that's out there, that's informing their product or service, and then the model, the evaluative model that's in place to really track and report and document the outcomes that are being delivered are the ones that are have the best chance of success. For example, Possible.me, it's a great example. They came to us and they're working with our researchers in the area of possibility science to determine, is this application really developing a mindset within that student that anything is possible, especially students that are in, typically or historically underserved communities. Are they getting access to services and support through this application, this college readiness application that will develop strong possibilities for them to succeed in college and career? So it's great to watch our entrepreneurs work with our researchers. It's something that I didn't have access to when I had my big exit. Probably wouldn't have made as many mistakes along the way as I made before ultimately getting it right. And it's really just an honor to work with such purpose-driven researchers and faculty members here at Penn's Graduate School of Education to help our entrepreneurs get it right.
But John, our show is about breaking the grade. Okay, so breaking the industry, great. But it's also about making those mistakes. So I know you want to help these entrepreneurs along, and that's fantastic. But isn't there value when you're building a business to breaking shit?
Absolutely. We talk a lot about failing fast and failing smart. We believe that it's the tinkering, it's the making mistakes, it's questioning our assumptions, and often getting out of our own way that is a key to success. So we think that adaptation, evolving, pivoting is all part of the process, and absolutely breaking things. It's very, very easy to get entrenched in conventional way of doing things in the K-12 and the higher ed space. So it's important that we get in there, think about what we can do to break models, to break molds, to do things differently. But as we're doing things differently, not doing it recklessly, doing it with an understanding of what the research shows, and doing it with an understanding that there's an evaluation or an assessment that needs to be made that would determine whether a product or service has value. So the end game is ultimately efficacy, but how you get there often requires a lot of adaptations and pivoting along the way.
Do you think the industry needs to change as a whole?
Absolutely. I think disruption in the education space is critically important. The days of an education system that was really built around this idea of the The teacher at the front of the room and lecturing is gone. We have to be thinking about guides on the sides that are facilitating lessons and allowing the students to solve problems, real world problems, is going to be the difference for them to be prepared for college and career in the 21st century. We're going beyond this military industrial complex and moving into a gig economy where we're really going to have to use our brains and solve critical problems in order to be successful in college and in life.
One of the most critical problems that you and I talk about a lot is the achievement gap. And I know it's important to your family. So can you talk about how we can address that on this show and how you're doing that day to day?
Yeah, I think that often we use the term closing the achievement gap, but there's a lot of ways to look at that. There's the opportunity gaps that are out there. So one of the things we're going to look at is equity, right? We're going to be thinking about equitable access to good education and what that looks like. We're going to be thinking about equitable experiences in the classroom. Is the lesson, the instructional episode that the student's going through culturally inclusive? Is it something that the student can actually relate to based on that student's lived experiences? And then we're going to look at equitable outcomes. Are we really thinking about how we're serving a student from an underrepresented community and ensuring that there's equitable outcomes for them so that they can go on and have a productive life? So achievement and equity are kind of hand in hand, and something that we'll look at as we think about ventures and guests and leaders who are breaking the grade in that way.
Absolutely. So that's a very serious subject. I'm going to take us to a less serious subject. We're halfway through this show. It's going to be a 30-minute show. At some point, we're going to have a sponsor for this show, and we would do our sponsor read right about now. So if there are any sponsors out there who see this, who want to join us, we've got our eyes on a few different companies we'd like to be associated with, but anybody can step up. So this is the spot where we will, pay some of those bills and talk for a minute about our gracious sponsor. We're going to get back to the show. How do you think that you can use this show to further make an impact on the industry and the entrepreneurs that need your mentoring?
I think through storytelling. I think it's important that we share the stories of the ventures and the entrepreneurs that are brave enough and have the courage to break the grade, right? To go into what we call the glacial pace by which the education community and the education system tends to move, and really, attack a problem and deliver a solution that's really going to make a difference. And so we're going to get into the whys of a lot of these entrepreneurs. Is it based on their lived experiences that they're getting involved in a product or service that's going to serve students with disability? I grew up learning differently. So we're going to look at and think about neurodiversity, and we're going to think about, how many people actually do learn differently. So what are we going to need to give them educational experiences that are going to serve them well? So I think sharing the stories, talking about lessons learned, the good, the bad, the ugly, not trying to stay away from prescriptive language of what it's going to take to really advance innovation, impact, and equity in this space, and going into those, raw stories and sharing the successes, sharing the failures, sharing the trials and tribulations of these entrepreneurs, I think is really important.
Professor, what is that dreaded prescriptive language that we want to avoid?
I think that there's no specific playbook. I don't think that there's any specific prescription. In fact, I think the prescription is non-prescription. In my experiences, I've been at this in 21 years. It's the creative whiteboard session where you're trying to go through your KPIs or your OKRs, your objectives and key results, and planning your business and developing your business, where you have an aha moment saying, gosh, I didn't even think of it that way. Back when I was trying to develop the company that ultimately exited, no one was buying a great product. And we had to get creative about having the product first sponsored by a local business before it actually could be sold directly into schools. That took a lot of iteration, what we call today design thinking, kind of starting at the end with the end in mind and working backwards. So I don't think that there's any one formula, but I think that there are a lot of collisions that advisors and mentors like us can guide an entrepreneur on this journey to come up with some creative ways of adapting, pivoting, and breaking the grade.
Well, let's gather around the fire together. And I've heard this story a million times, but if you can take us back to when you did have to find that sponsor, because you were almost done, right? And just let's talk for a few minutes about that story, because I think these are the stories that we want to hear from you. We want to hear from our guests that are going to inspire the community. So let's all gather around the fire.
So it is I'll keep it quick, because this is a big story. Like from working for 2 years after mortgaging my house and not paying myself and really struggling as a starving entrepreneur, all the way to creating the product but not being able to have schools and school districts purchase it. I had an incredible demonstration of the product in a principal's office where I showed this solution that allowed a principal to pick up a standard telephone, record a personalized voice message, and send that message out to parents in a moment's notice. And he got the demo, and there he was. I was ready to get the order, and he said, "I just can't afford it. I'm firing teachers. I'm cutting my budgets. We don't have the funds to purchase something like this." And when I left his office, kind of disgruntled again with another no, talk about humbling, I saw a bus bench with a realtor's face on it that said Neil Klimo sells Irvine. And he actually was advertising on a bus bench outside of the school, paying thousands of dollars to get recognized by anybody who went in or around that school. And I said, how much would Neil pay to be recognized at the end of that message? This message is brought to you by our partner in education, Neil Klimo of Remax Premier Realty. How much would he pay to actually sponsor the message? Well, it turns out I needed about $500 for it to spot. He would pay $5,000 to be recognized by the most trusted of institutions, that principal, and I was off to the races. It was a great story, and everyone won. And that's what I encourage the entrepreneurs that I work with now, is to really look for the wins for everyone. The sponsor won, being recognized by the principal in a personalized voice. The parents won, they were being alerted as to what was going on at the schools. And the students won. A more involved parent leads to a higher achieving student. So we found that win-win-win, where we needed $500 for that sponsorship to happen. We got 5,000. We added a zero, and we moved from there, and the rest was history. Ultimately, that wasn't the most scalable model, but it definitely paid a lot of bills and allowed us to start moving east from California to sell that product in.
Would it be okay if we just had Neil as our sponsor until we get an actual sponsor?
I wonder if Neil Klimo is still selling Irvine. I have to check that out. That's a great question.
That's good, because you know what? Let's get him on, but let's have him be the sponsor.
I have to also give credit to that telephone spot, as we call it, to a gentleman by the name of Bennett Liss, who is the founder of the company. I was the co-founder, and he really came up with it. We talk about those whiteboard sessions. We were thinking, how are we going to sell it to schools? And he said, you know what? So he kind of came up with the idea as we were both selling this and looking at the bus benches and seeing Neil Klimo, and there we met with him, and he ended up being the perfect sponsor. So Neil Klimo in Irvine, California.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you,
Neil. Another thing we will obviously talk about, because it is a huge impact on your business, is partner selection. So we will go deep into that, and I look forward to continue this conversation. As we get to meet new entrepreneurs, we're going to hear more stories like Neil sponsoring, and John, and the rejection You know, anybody who knows John Gamba or Josh Chernikoff knows that we are glass half full guys, but we are going to put a spotlight on the companies that are breaking the grade, meaning breaking the industry, but that are also breaking themselves. You know, John and I have had intimate conversations about relationships being broken because when you're so passionate about your business, things like that are going to happen. And so we're going to expose all that stuff in a good way, only with the hope of raising up our whole community. So John, as we get going on this journey together, do you have anybody who's specifically on your wish list that we want to call out right now to join this show?
Well, there's a couple people. There's people who have been semifinalists and finalists in the Milken competition. I've named them. You've named them. The Thimbles of the world with Oscar Pedrosa, the Gabons with Sylvia and Jared Hall, the Prisms of Reality with Anarupa Ganguly. I mean, I could go on and on. And as you talk about, how they're navigating on this ed tech entrepreneurial superhighway, I'd like to think that what they've demonstrated or what they have been able to manifest in their life and their careers is what I call the paradox of humility and will. And you kind of talked about that. Humility, they were coachable. They were able to say that they couldn't do it alone. They were able to take advice and mentorship from people who had been there before them. But they were willing to run through walls to make sure they were able to be successful. They were able to do what it takes with no excuses. They were able to persevere and be resilient, which is what every entrepreneur needs to do to be successful. They had, and they represent the paradox, all the ones I named, the paradox of humility and will. And I think that's an important theme as we think about who is breaking the grade and whether they represent those values. And I'd be willing to bet, I'm not a betting man, but I'd be willing to bet that many of them have those qualities.
Yeah. I mean, I have been lucky enough to work with or meet or talk to a lot of those people that you mentioned, and they do have those qualities. So in our last moments here, we will make sure that on this show, we will bring smiles to people's faces, maybe a tear or two, because we got some stories to tell. And we'll bring on people who are willing to tell their stories. I think what we will effort to do is bring together a community of entrepreneurs in education who are currently breaking the grade. So I'm looking forward to doing this thing with you. It's a long time coming. We'll make mistakes, but you and I are cool with that. That's how we learn. Anything you'd like to kind of close with in the last moments here?
No, I'm just super excited too. Sharing these stories, understanding the whys, who's making an impact, and what are they thinking about in terms of breaking the grade. I think is going to be very powerful, enlightening, and hopefully through our stories we'll be able to help a lot of entrepreneurs. I like to think about that. If I could just help one entrepreneur, like a lot of advisors and mentors that I've had in my life, it's all worth it. So let's share the stories. Let's figure this out, and let's push forward as we continue to break the grade.
We will do it as a community, and we will do it on our second show, where we will have our first guest to be named later. So stick around for that. And thank everybody for listening. And we've got a hell of a journey to go on as we all break the grade. Thank you.
You got it.
Thanks for listening, Breakers. Next time on Breaking the Grade.